States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I am saddened to share the news that Rotarian Roger Schrader passed away last week. Roger was a member of the Rotary Club of Milwaukee for 43 years, serving on the Finance Committee and the Scholarship Golf Classic Committee since its inception. Roger was an active committee member and regular sponsor of the Golf Classic, and just this year he joined us out at the River Club. He will be missed. So let's take a moment of silence for Roger. Now, Ryan Daniels, Executive Director of the Milwaukee Public Library Foundation, will give our reflection.
Thank you, President Laverne. This weekend, I had the opportunity to reflect on civic engagement, and the power of a public-private partnership, trying to think of how commercial real estate and what we do as Rotarians making a difference can come together. You might have seen on the news that the new MLK branch was opened this weekend. And so I would like for each of us, as we go through our lives as Rotarians, thinking about the obvious ways that we can do good in the world, but also through commercial real estate and this public-private partnership, we've created a space for our entire community. So how can we find ways to impact environment beyond what you would normally see, and as Rotarians apply our skills and knowledge? Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Good afternoon again. Special thanks to Nidhi Kashyap and Pat Cronin for greeting us today near the lunch line. And thank you to Alex Zamora for hosting the new member table today. I would like to welcome our virtual audience. We are happy you're able to join us today via the live stream. And I would also like to welcome the guests that we have here present in Memorial Hall today. Please stand when I call your names, and Rotarians, please hold your applause until I have called all the names. David Berry, Kevin Berry, David Bartelt, David Buckley, and Nick Zurich of the Berry Company. Matthew Hoy and Antonia Bareford of Hunter Real Estate. Daryl Jackson of Milwaukee Public Schools. Claudia Vizcaino, Osborne Bar, Paramore. Bill Caraher, Von Briesen and Roper. Suzanne Spencer of Suzanne Speaks. And Daryl Fritz, Retired Investment Advisor. Thank you for joining us today. We're glad to have you. Before we turn to the program, let's catch up on some club business. Last month, the Rotary Club of Milwaukee Board of Directors approved a challenge grant to support the flood relief efforts of Feeding America. This challenge grant from the RCM Community Trust will match all donations dollar for dollar up to $10,000. Along with the 32 Rotarians in our club who have already contributed, we're grateful to the Rotary Club of Wapaka for a generous $1,000 gift, bringing us just to under $9,000. That means we are within reach of our $10,000 match, but we need a little more help to get there. If you are able, please consider making a donation. You can scan the QR code on your flyer or on the screens to give today. And every contribution toward flood relief makes a meaningful difference in the lives of those affected. So we thank you for that. Our latest People of Action profile has been published, and this time we learn about Dan Vliet, who served as our club president in 2015 and 16. Dan recently retired as a shareholder in the law firm of Bulow, Vetter, Bukema, Olson and Vliet. Dan represented municipalities and school districts in a variety of matters. Helping employers better understand and serve their employers' needs was challenging and sometimes contentious. However, Dan successfully created an environment of compromise and harmony whereby the employer's bottom line was protected and the employees looked forward to the workday. Read more about Dan, check out the copies of his profile found on your tables, as well as in the club email. And anytime you see a lawyer mentioned as creating an environment of harmony, I think you know we're dealing with a pretty special person. So I would really encourage you all to read that. And special thanks to Barbara Velez for this excellent write-up on Dan. Our club is proud to once again sponsor the 11th annual Hike Milwaukee on Saturday, October 4th. This family-friendly urban hike takes us through Riverside Park and the Milwaukee Rotary Centennial Arboretum with fun activities along the way, like trailside stations, bingo with prizes, and a new encore celebration featuring campfires, food, and games. Every hiker also gets a free eco-friendly adventure journal. And best of all, Rotarians and their guests attend at no cost. The event runs from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., but we encourage Rotarians to arrive by 9:45 a.m. so we can start the hike together. New this year, Rotarians and families are invited to add to the fun by volunteering at the finish line. Volunteers will encourage hikers as they complete the trail and hand out prizes to participants. Sign up online or at the registration table. We look forward to seeing you on the trail. That's again on October 4th. And as we like to say, we have a lot going on at Rotary. Tomorrow, September 10th, we have two events open to all. The first, join fellow Rotarians for a Thai Rotarian tour of the Milwaukee Repertory Theater at 4:30 p.m. and get a behind-the-scenes look as the theater completes its $80 million renovation. This tour is almost at capacity, so check with the Rotary office if you would like to attend. After the tour, or at 5 p.m., meet up with the Beer Connector at the Old German Beer Hall. Managing Director and Rotarian Hans Weisgerber will tap the official Oktoberfest keg at 6 p.m. and offer free beer until it runs out. Go ahead.
Actually, our fellow Rotarian Eckert Roman is going to tap.
Oh, terrific. All right.
Please come join us for some Oktoberfest beer.
All right. Even greater reason to attend here, right? Okay, thanks, Hans. Then later this month on Friday, September 26th, start your morning with stunning views of the North Point Lighthouse Museum on our next Thai Rotarian tour. Rotarians will receive guided tours of this beautifully restored 1888 lighthouse and keeper's quarters. Highlights of the tour include the history from the lighthouse, working boats, and Shipwreck Alley. The tour will run from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Be sure to register online or at the registration table. And for more information on Open World, the latest Connections episode, and more, please refer to the flyer on your tables. Now, turning to our program, I am pleased to introduce Tracy Johnson, who will serve as our moderator and introduce our two other Rotarians who are speaking today. Tracy is the president and CEO for CARW, the Commercial Association of Realtors, Wisconsin. She has more than 20 years of association management and nonprofit experience, serving as the executive director for Temple Milwaukee and director of public affairs for the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra. She's on a number of boards and other professional associations, including our Rotary Club, obviously. So please welcome Tracy Johnson, Jim Barry, and Matt Hunter.
All right, they tell us we have to sit down, so we'll sit. Thank you, President Laverne. It's great to be here today. I'm Tracy Johnson, fellow Rotarian and lifelong Milwaukeean, and I'm honored to be up here, today to talk about commercial real estate, an industry that I think is so relevant to all of us in our day-to-day lives. I share the stage with two of the most prolific and prominent commercial real estate practitioners in the industry, Matt Hunter and Jim Barry, but I also want to acknowledge some other outstanding commercial real estate practitioners who sit among us as Rotarians. Tom Gale, who is over here in the bright jacket, and Terry McMahon as well from Cushman Wakefield, the Berkey Company. Before I begin though, I want you to really think about what commercial real estate is. A lot of people think about office buildings, they think about manufacturing plants, or maybe a retail or a store or a mall. But to me, it's really about the people who make the things happen, who build our communities, who are creative, who are entrepreneurial, and who care very deeply about their community. And a fun fact about the commercial realtors in our community, 80% of them, 80% of our members in CARW went to school, went to college, obviously they live here, but they're from here. They want to see their communities survive, thrive, and grow. So, here's the thing. All right, a little outline about today's program. We're going to give a quick overview, economic impact for commercial real estate. We'll talk about the office market, industrial market. I've got a few questions, and then we'll open it up to the audience. All right, what is CAR? We are a commercial real estate association. We're focused on brokers, the licensees. We have about 1,000 members, founded in 1993. But the reason I wanted to tell you about the organization is so that you understand that these are professional licensed practitioners. And also we talk about ethics and trust. These are personal decisions. These are big dollars that we're talking about as business leaders. So it's very important to know that you're working with the best in the business. And also just a quick point that when business owners are selling or transacting their commercial property, don't use a residential broker. Those are for selling your houses. Commercial brokers don't sell houses, right? They might be the same license, but they're very, very different. Our organization focuses on advocacy. We focus on keeping property taxes low, creating a strong business environment. And we even advocate for big projects that create communities, like the Bucks Arena, I-94 East-West. And right now, we're working on the EPA non-attainment zones. We're working on an economic impact study for I-794, and also commercial development processes in Milwaukee and surrounding communities. We have a data exchange that keeps our brokers at the forefront of all of the information and transactions. And then one of the things that I think is most important is our involvement in the community. We have a foundation. We supply scholarships for students studying commercial real estate. And then the Next Gen program, which keeps professionals engaged. And then tomorrow, you will see a big announcement from our organization that will be around flood relief for homeowners and renters, and so watch for that. The economic impact created by commercial real estate, $3.6 billion contributed to Wisconsin's GDP annually from commercial real estate development and operations, $11.6 billion in wages, and 60,000 jobs. We take a step back and look at how that commercial real estate development ties into construction, and we're talking about $62.7 billion in total output that sustains over 330,000 jobs. And then the ripple effect, of course, across all sectors, retail, healthcare, and real estate leasing. Commercial real estate offers Wisconsin a competitive edge nationally, providing major market benefits compared to our neighbors in Chicago, because we have a much lower cost of doing business. What I always like to say is, imagine our economy without commercial real estate. And just briefly, the different sectors in commercial real estate: industrial, office, retail, and multifamily. We're going to focus on industrial and office today. These two sectors are at the forefront of current challenges and opportunities, office with evolving workspace, and industrial with supply chain and logistics growth. So I think you're going to take away a lot of great insights today. And then finally, big picture, setting the stage. Commercial real estate is, like I said, not just about the space. It's not just about the buildings. When you ask a site selector what their number one factor is in choosing a location, they'll say access to labor, access to talent. That's sometimes even more important than the tax climate. Secondly, financing is everything. A project that looks great on paper can collapse in an instant if interest rates spike or the lending terms shift. And access to that capital really drives development. Policy. It shapes projects, zoning, permitting, tax incentives. It's why CAR-W focus so much on lobbying and advocacy efforts on behalf of our community and behalf of our members. And then finally, commercial real estate ripples through communities, as Ryan mentioned. Imagine if that library didn't exist throughout our community, right? This is a catalyst for housing, for retail, for so many other things that drive our economy. And it's one of the reasons that I'm so proud to work with this industry today. And then I just want to leave you with just another kind of thought about commercial real estate and commercial real estate practitioners. They truly are essential. It's why during the COVID shutdowns, realtors were deemed essential. Otherwise, how would we keep our hospitals open and our data centers moving and our financial institutions doling out those dollars so that we could sustain our economy? So it's why I love this organization. It's why I love this business. And it's why I'm going to turn it over right now to Matt Hunter, who is going to talk about the office market.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you, Rotary, for giving me the opportunity to present today. My name is Matt Hunter. I'm the founder of Hunter Real Estate. Hunter Real Estate, well, I guess let me catch up. Hunter Real Estate is a Milwaukee-based commercial real estate firm dedicated to building local relationships and delivering real estate solutions to our clients. We primarily focus on representing tenants when they're forced with an upcoming lease expiration to determine if renewing or relocating is the best decision. We also represent a lot of landlords when they're trying to backfill some of their vacancies. Some of our top listings, you'll notice on the screen, are the Huron Building, which is located at 511 North Broadway. This is a 163,000 square foot Class A building. We also list River One, which is located at 210 West Beecher Street. This is a 200,000 square foot Class A building. And then we list City Center, located at 735 North Water, which is a 428,000 square foot Class B building in downtown Milwaukee. Our direct values at Hunter Real Estate are determination, integrity, results, excellence, collaboration, and trust. So what's going on in the Milwaukee office market? The Milwaukee office market is heavily fragmented. There's a lot of good, but there's also a lot of bad. You'll notice that total inventory, sales transaction, and unemployment have all remained relatively flat over the last 3 quarters. On a positive note, you'll notice that lease transactions, lease rates are increasing slightly, which would make most people assume that vacancy rates must be decreasing and absorption must be going up, but the opposite has actually occurred. So vacancy rates continue to go up and absorption is negative. So what's going on? So total inventory has remained flat. This is because there's been virtually no new construction in our marketplace. Furthermore, a lot of functionally obsolete office buildings are being converted primarily into multifamily, but also industrial, which I'll touch on later in our presentation. This limits the supply and ultimately increases the demand, which is why we're seeing rental rates go up. COVID and this post-COVID hybrid world that we live in today has caused every single employer and company to pause and reevaluate what their office leasing strategy should be. As a result of this, we're seeing more lease transactions. However, a lot of these lease transactions are ultimately right-sizing and leasing less square footage in the marketplace. So this is why we can see the total lease transaction volume go up, lease rates go up, which is all positive momentum, but simultaneously also have more vacant space in the market. As I said before, the office market is heavily fragmented. There's a lot of good, but there's also a lot of bad. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through 3 examples of where one door opens, another door closes. Northwestern Mutual recently announced that they were going to be shutting down their 880,000 square foot Franklin facility. This is a huge blow to the city of Franklin, but it also creates an opportunity for another large corporate user to come in and backfill this vacancy. There's a saying in our industry that large vacancies do large deals. Shortly after A&M made this announcement, they also announced that they're going to be building a brand new $500 million development office building in downtown Milwaukee. Northwestern Mutual will relocate their 2,000 employees from Franklin into this new facility. When the facility is completed, it is estimated that Northwestern Mutual will have just over 9,000 employees working at their downtown campus, which is a huge win for downtown Milwaukee, local businesses, and the housing community. United Healthcare downsized and relocated from a building in Wauwatosa to Honey Creek. This left a 90,000 square foot vacant building in our submarket. Shortly thereafter, Ergens, a local developer, purchased the building and spent a bunch of money renovating it. The building today is known as Research One, which over the last 2 years has been one of the most successful office buildings in the Wauwatosa submarket when it comes to new leasing activity. Some of the new leasing transactions that have occurred at this building are Markel Group, Amerigis, Northwestern Mutual, Act Talent, and Morgan Myers. Giving myself a shameless plug, I'm proud to announce that Hunter Real Estate represented both Northwestern Mutual and Morgan Myers in the recent lease transactions at this building. Finally, 100 East announced at the end of 2023 that it was going to be sold to a group of local developers who plan to convert the building into 373 high-end apartments. This sparked a flood of office tenants relocating. In total, 8 tenants relocated and leased just over 100,000 square feet, primarily in our downtown market at other Class A buildings. Those buildings include 411 East Wisconsin Avenue, 833 East Michigan, BMO Tower, and the Associated Bank River Center building. The only tenant that didn't relocate downtown was Northwestern Mutual, who, as previously stated, ended up leasing space out in Wauwatosa. Office conversions are another trend that we're seeing in the office market. So functionally obsolete office buildings are being converted primarily into multifamily. This is because the fundamentals for multifamily leasing are strong. They have just over a 94% occupancy rate, and the renewal rate is just over 70%. At the end of last year, Rent Cafe, which is a national publication, actually put Milwaukee as the third most competitive multifamily market in the nation, trailing only suburban Chicago and Miami, which is great news for Milwaukee and our housing market. But some landlords are continuing to reinvest in their office space, and they're being rewarded for it. We're definitely continuing to see a flight to quality, where office tenants that are, where Class A and recently renovated Class B buildings are significantly outperforming the market. Companies are trying to figure out how to get their employees back into the office. Studies have shown that companies that have employees back in the office have better culture, they have better mentorship and training, they have more collaboration and engagement, which all results in more productivity and employee retention. So buildings with the best amenities generate premium rents and have increased occupancy gains. Top amenities are going to encourage their employees back into the office and support a hybrid work model, which is critical when trying to recruit and retain top talent. Some of the top amenities that we're seeing in the market today are private rooftops and patios, updated conference rooms with best-of-class AV equipment, updated training rooms, golf simulators, and for some buildings, private boat slips. In closing, I believe the Milwaukee office market is proving that resiliency sparks reinvention. I think we're entering a new chapter in Milwaukee, one that's defined by creativity, collaboration, and momentum. I believe the future of office in Milwaukee is bright, and Hunter Real Estate is excited to be a part of what's ahead. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Matt. My name's Jim Barry, and a little bit about the Barry Company. We are 104 years old. I've been around Milwaukee. We do almost everything in real estate, but our concentration is mainly on industrial and office. And we have a few of our representatives here today. I want to thank my brother David Barry and colleague David Barry for helping out with these slides. What I'd like to do is talk about, first about the national industrial market, and then talk about the local industrial market, and then talk about some trends that are occurring. Contrary to the office market, which has many challenges but many opportunities, the industrial market has been fairly strong for the past number of years. So you can see from this chart, this is the national market. The vacancy rate has remained historically low. It started to go up a bit. It's forecast to go up, but the historic rate is around 7 to 8%, and we have not been at that number for quite a long period of time. There was a great amount of development and delivery of space up until 2025, and that has now gone down a bit. That's going to help to keep the vacancy rate in check nationally. These two charts show, the top one shows the rental rate of growth that has been occurring for the past several years, which has been astonishing. We've seen rental rates grow at almost double-digit numbers in some areas, and they're starting to decline now, but still positive growth. the same time, the asking rents have gone up regularly, and we are seeing that particularly in the Milwaukee market. If you look at this chart, which just came out earlier this week, Nashville has the strongest industrial rent growth, but Milwaukee is right up there at number 7. And so we are seeing a very strong industrial market. And this chart shows a little bit about the prices per square foot, which again have gone up quite a bit in the past several years nationally. Starting, that blue line starts at about $100 per square foot and is going up almost to $180 per square foot. Our market is not there, but our market is achieving that over 100 threshold, which would have been unheard of a number of years ago. Turning to southeastern Wisconsin, again, our vacancy rate has been historically low. It's been in that 3 to 5% range, which is something we didn't see for a long time. It's grown up a little bit, and there's a reason for that. And that reason is that, first of all, we're seeing in some submarkets vacancy rates of, less than 1%, 4%, Sheboygan 0.5%. That happens to be our building, so know about it. But so we're seeing these very low rates in some of the submarkets. However, there are 2 submarkets that have higher rates, Kenosha and Racine. If you've driven down South I-94, you have seen large million-plus square foot buildings. A lot of them are vacant. There's probably about 10 million square feet of vacancy down there, which has moved the overall vacancy rate back up into that 6 to 7%. But you can see in Kenosha it's 11.5 and Racine 9.8%. Without that, we would be way down in our historical vacancy rates in the industrial market. And again, you can see here that we had in southeastern Wisconsin quite a bit of new development, quite a bit of new deliveries, and the vacancy rate remained very low even while that new product was coming on market. The reason that it's going up now, again, is because so much was done in that I-94 South corridor, and it's going to take a while for that to be absorbed. And here you can see that the absorption has started to weaken recently, as have construction starts, as has the sale volume. But the sale volume was up to such a degree that it had to come back down to earth a little bit. All in all, though, very positive news in the industrial market. The asking rents per square foot, you can see from 2015 have gone up. They haven't quite doubled, but they're moving towards doubling. And the same thing, a steady increase in the price per square foot in the sales of buildings. Again, as I said, there were many buildings that never hit that $100 per square foot threshold. Here are 4 recent transactions, nothing too exceptional, where we have buildings sold at over $100 per square foot, and that is kind of forming the new threshold. Conversions are occurring as well of office to industrial, which is something that I never thought we would see. If you drive down to O'Hare Airport, you would have seen the Allstate campus in Chicago been totally torn down and redeveloped into industrial, all office to industrial. And we're seeing that on a smaller scale, throughout the market here. I think that will continue a bit because the price per square foot of industrial in some cases exceeds office, and it makes sense to do that conversion. We're also seeing the conversion of old industrial to mixed-use space. This is a building in the Menominee Valley that we recently sold. A developer it doesn't look like this anymore. The windows have been torn out, and it's going to be a very nice cream city brick mixed-use building. Older multi-story industrial buildings are obsolete. There still are a few in the market, but if you look at the 3rd Ward, that used to be an industrial center. It's now an office residential and retail center. And so we'll see that trend happen until there really are no more of these buildings. Finally, as I mentioned, the massive buildings that you see down in the I-94 corridor, national developers came in and overbuilt that area, and that's a challenging area of industrial while the rest of the market is very solid. So, quick overview, the industrial market is strong nationally, but relatively stronger in southeastern Wisconsin, and will continue to improve with lower interest rates and greater certainty in the economy. Second, there are exceptions to this, like the overbuilt I-94 South corridor. It is too soon to tell, but the implementation of tariffs may cause greater reshoring of manufacturing and may also create greater demand in warehouse space. E-commerce is doing that as well. Southeastern Wisconsin has a very robust and diverse manufacturing corridor and is poised for continued expansion if we can find the space. And lease rates and sale prices will continue to steadily rise in coming years. The only other thing I'd bring up is that we've seen a resurgence of interest in sale-leaseback transactions in the industrial market. That's where the owner of a building sells the building and leases it back. The reason for that is that interest rates have gone up, and so financing is not as favorable as it was, and that is a way to raise capital using an existing asset. So that's my overview. Turn it back over to you, Tracy.
All right, excellent. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you. And then for those interested, will these slides, can we make these slides available? I'm sure you're all going to need some more context, though. So we've got about 10 minutes where we do some moderated questions that we've prepared for you. I might have a few that I didn't prepare you for as well, and then we'll open it up to the audience for questions. So both of you talked about redevelopment and conversions, and I want to hear from you how an owner, how an occupier, how a business leader would make that choice between a conversion or a tear down. Why doesn't everybody just try to do a conversion?
Well, I can tell you that certainly some of the conversions we've been seeing, the buildings are no longer economically suited for their purpose. And so if you are not able to achieve the pro forma that you want in an office building or in an industrial building, like the one I showed you, which the pro forma was 0, then you look at the cost of renovation and you underwrite it like you would any real estate deal. You look for the opportunity to make rent through other means. So if a building's suited for its original purpose, I think it's going to stay that way. But if there are buildings where you simply cannot make a good return on them, you have to look at conversion.
Well, and especially with so much need for apartments, everybody would think, oh, you have all this empty office space. Why don't you see more conversions than you already do? Because there's certainly some empty office space.
Exactly. I mean, simply said, unfortunately for me as an office broker, the leasing fundamentals for multifamily and for industrial are just better than they are for the office market right now. So as a result, we're seeing a lot of, functionally obsolete office buildings shifting towards becoming more multifamily or, as Jim has pointed out, into industrial space. One comment that I will make is I think as it relates to multifamily, I am nervous that that bubble might be close to popping right now. Over the last few years, Milwaukee has had an influx of new high-rise apartment buildings coming into our market. Those are NM 777 development, the Culture, 333 North Water, and then also Newland's mass timber building, which is called the Ascent. All of these buildings currently compete with each other to attract and retain tenants, which is causing their lease up to be behind schedule right now. And then you compound that with the fact that we have a new wave of office conversions coming down the pipeline. I'm nervous that the multifamily market might be oversaturated, and as a result needs to stabilize before additional conversions should be considered.
Yeah, and it's also interesting to think about like 100 East, for example, which is kind of the one that a lot of people hear about. Is the office, the floor plates have to have to make sense, right? You have to have natural light. You have to have access to elevator shafts. You have to have access to so many things that maybe a huge office building might not have, because nobody wants to be in that center suite, so to say. Jim, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the rent growth. And obviously, a lot of the rent growth in industrial is coming from the fact that you are not currently building more, adding to the supply. But there is still a lot of speculative development and empty industrial, more than we've seen in years. Who are those potential users, and how does someone in your position go about finding those users?
Well, I think the demand is still there across the board. There are some. Speculative development historically has not been something that we do in southeastern Wisconsin, but we did see at the end of this last cycle a number of speculative developers come in and take some fairly wild bets. There are other speculative developers who are very good, who just did it incrementally, small amounts of space at a time, and they were able to fill it, and they were very successful. I think we're going to see that wane a little bit. But, we do have a robust market, and I think what we look at is whether or not, the continuation of e-commerce requires more warehouse space, more inventory, the disruptions that occurred during COVID, more is being held in inventory. And I think one of the things that we haven't really seen some of it, but the reshoring of manufacturing is a very real possibility. And not just because of the tariffs, but because of the difficulty of manufacturing overseas, getting product here, the potential disruptions, and the fact that a lot of manufacturing has become automated. So if you can have your automated manufacturing here rather than China, and you're not dependent on lower wages, which is the reason a lot of people go over there, there's going to be more manufacturing here. And I think we're seeing every large manufacturer look at that, small manufacturers look at that and say, is this something I could do better here? We have had several clients who have moved out of overseas manufacturing and brought it back to the United States, and I think that that's going to be a trend as we go forward.
Well, and we're certainly ready, it sounds like, with some supply that is ready at hand. Matt, I want to move to you because you've seen a lot of movement for office users coming downtown. You had the announcement of Fiserv coming from the suburbs. We saw Enerpac, which is an industrial user that's moving their office tenants. Can you talk a little bit about how we're bringing new companies to the table? And if we're doing that, let's just say in a second office location or an expansion or looking outside the Milwaukee market, how do you square that?
So I guess I'll start by saying speculative development is a term we don't use in office. And I wish that Milwaukee had more new absorption. Unfortunately, in the office market, a lot of the lease transactions that we're seeing are renewals and existing tenants relocating. So to Tracy's point, a lot of the existing relocations are suburban tenants and industrial tenants at times prioritizing coming downtown. I think this speaks to one of the points that I made in my presentation, which is, companies want to get their workforce back into the office, and there's an energy and there's an excitement about being downtown. And the thought there is that, by being a downtown tenant, you can attract, and retain best talent. So yep.
When you talk to users and to those in the market, what other cities or what other states are we competing with?
I guess majority of the tenants that I work with right now are primarily just looking within Wisconsin. But I think generally speaking, when you do get a multi-market tenant, they're kind of looking throughout the Midwest. So.
And I posed that same question to you, Jim. I know you had that chart that kind of looked at all of the other markets that were experiencing rent growth. When you're locating a national tenant and they're looking, what are they looking for? And which cities are we competing with?
Well, I'm not sure there's a lot of intercity competition, maybe, with Northern Illinois, but I think we have a lot of advantages, and you're seeing the migration of industrial space come over the border. That's why we've seen the I-94 corridor grow as much as it has, even though it's overbuilt now. But I think what we're seeing in the design of industrial buildings right now are, higher bay spaces, better column spacing, more internal light, better loading capacity. So industrial buildings are not that complicated to put together, but I think that certainly the one that I showed the slide of, the Reedco building in the Menominee Valley, was designed in a very different way than you would design a building now. So what you're doing is you're looking at buildings that are designed to maximize the efficiency either of manufacturing, but particularly of distribution. And if it's a distribution warehouse, you want to be in close proximity to transportation. You want to be able to have your loading capacity where it should be. Amazon would be a great example of this. The Amazon distribution centers that we have, they time down to the second how long it's going to take them to distribute the things that they need to distribute. So that really has become an automated science, and the building design reflects that.
Well, and when you see CarW advocating for the redevelopment or enhancement of our roadways, our corridors, that's exactly why, is because our businesses need that access to infrastructure. It's one of our top priorities. So Matt, nationally, there's discussion about all of this office debt coming due, trillions of dollars in office debt coming due, and you hear about building owners who are refinancing, they're pushing it out further, they're making deals with their banks. How is Wisconsin and Milwaukee particularly positioned to fare this storm?
Yeah, that's a great question, and definitely something that the commercial real estate office market is very sensitive and aware of. Thankfully, I think the local banks in Wisconsin are positioned well to weather this storm. And I say that because Milwaukee is, relatively speaking, a mid-sized market, and we've had conservative, a lending culture over the past few years. Furthermore, most of these banks, when it comes to the office loan makes up about 2% of their overall investment portfolio. So and on top of that, when you take into account the office conversions, any office buildings that historically have been struggling that are being converted into multifamily or industrial, that limits the supply and ultimately increases the demand, which then further stabilizes the market then too.
And I would agree with Matt, and just add to that, that we're like the Milwaukee, southeast Wisconsin is kind of like the tortoise in the commercial real estate market, slow and steady. We don't go crazy with speculation. And so when we do hit a downturn, we're generally positioned much better than markets where, the Phoenix and Miami and places where they've overbuilt, particularly in the office area. So there's always challenges, but we are definitely positioned well for any potential downturn.
All right, so I have a final question for you, Jim, because we have to get to audience questions, right? So we didn't talk a lot about data centers, but I want to get your input on how data centers are impacting industrial real estate. And then if you could add why Wisconsin is so hot right now for this type of development.
Well, I don't know a great deal about the data centers. Obviously, they're taking up a lot of land, and there's a lot of speculation in terms of they're going to be needed for AI and other uses going forward. They like what we have here, moderate temperatures, water, consistent workforce, available land that's in some proximate location to power. So I think we check a lot of boxes, and I think that's what's driving a lot of the interest in this market.
Yeah, and not to mention, I believe Wisconsin recently passed a law where they would exempt data centers from a sales tax, which is a big deal as well. Probably a whole separate Rotary conversation on that. And then a final question for you, Matt. And this is kind of like a yes or no answer. Are we going to see a new office tower here in the next 5 years? Because we talked about this before.
100% yes.
Even though we have a lot of supply?
So let me give some clarity to that answer. NM has already announced that they're going to build a new office tower, but I think there's been such limited construction And there's a finite amount of Class A and especially larger Class A vacancies available in the marketplace, that as larger tenants want, new space, there just isn't very many options right now. So it wouldn't surprise me if in the next 5 years we do see a new tower break ground. I wouldn't be surprised if that new tower is located west of the river. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's a mixed-use development of some sorts with retail, office, and some sort of multifamily or hotel component. And if the tower does get announced and break ground, I think this will set a new high water mark in terms of what office rents can be in Milwaukee.
Wow, very bullish. All right, is this where we open it up to questions? And if not, I have like 50 more.
Before we open it up to questions, we did hear from our online audience that they could not hear Hans's announcement. So this is very important. Eckhart will be our keg tapper at the Beer Connector tomorrow. That was just for our online audience. So thank you. All right, now we'll open up to questions. Please be sure to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Melissa. Thank you all for your presentation today. I'm Joan Johnson, Milwaukee Public Library, and I'm very grateful to commercial real estate and developers who partner with the library to deliver these fantastic mixed-use buildings that we've been bringing to the community for the last 11 years. But I wanted to ask about water. You mentioned it a little bit with the data centers, but I had been wanting to ask you this. Are you seeing, or is there any trend as far as industrial shifting towards the Great Lakes region because of the water resource that we have here?
Yeah, I think that actually has been historically what's happened in Milwaukee, and we have a water center that has tried to kind of bring together a lot of the water users. But if you look at, the use of beer and processing agricultural products, and water is used in a lot of manufacturing, and so it's a great amenity to have. And I think it's something that, yes, if you are going to be using a water-based manufacturing process, coming here would be a natural place to come.
Hi, my name is Megan Holbrook. I had a question about whether Carr had taken a position on the 794 to ground level conversion, because that seems like it would have a large impact on available land.
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, we don't have a position on it right now, but we did engage a researcher and national research team to look at the economic impact of the three kind of bucketed scenarios, whether it is a tear down option, because there's been a lot of economic impact research on the opportunity for development. But also, if you just left it as it was, what does that mean for the community? And then if you modify it, if you enhance or modernize some of the ramps, how does that impact the region, whether it's the port, whether it's some of the other manufacturers along the area, whether it's DeLong or Komatsu or what have you, and also tourism, last mile distribution, traffic patterns. So that research should be launched within the next couple of months. So I'm really excited about it. And then hopefully we can develop a position and help policymakers make an educated decision, because there is very little information out there about the economic impact.
Matt, Jim, Tracy, Alex Zamora, thanks so much for the presentation. Matt, two quick questions for you. One, could you explain the difference between a Class A and a Class B building? And then when it comes to shifting the office spaces, you mentioned the amenities and everything. Do you think there could be, with the return to office, I see a lot of folks fighting for seats in places, and seeing all of that, there has been that shift. But with the return to office, are you seeing trends on that to folks adding more space as they're bringing people back, or could that be part of the pendulum that'll swing at some point?
So I guess generally speaking, as it relates to Class A versus Class B, Class A is, brand new construction with best of class amenities. And Class B is going to be an older building that, has, also oftentimes gone through some modernization and upgrades, but is usually, 20 to 30 years kind of older in age. But I will say that the terminology between Class A and Class B is subjective. So, I mean, there's plenty of buildings in our Milwaukee market that are much older than that still, have the brand of being a Class A building, 100 East being a prime example of that. So it's a little bit in the eye of the beholder, but generally speaking, Class A is brand new and Class B is a little bit older. So as it relates to just, tenants' office needs and space requirements, I mean, this is still kind of being defined in this post-COVID arena that we live in right now. You're definitely seeing some companies that are prioritizing hoteling where no one has an assigned seat. We're definitely trying to support, both tenants, employees that are in the office 5 days a week, but also complementing that with employees that come into the office 2 to 3 days a week. So every company is kind of figuring out their own solution to those questions, but it's evolving.
Thank you for being here. John Franke. My question's perhaps a little off topic. You talked about industrial and office development, but you did mention apartments and multifamily developments. As a casual observer, it just seems like there has been no development of condominium projects in Milwaukee. And my question would be, are we different in that respect from other similar cities? And is there any condominium development on the horizon? Is that going to change one way or the other?
I'm not aware of any pending condominium developments. For a period of time, there was a trend of having office condos where, an office building would minimize their office suites and sell them to a tenant and, have it be a condo. I think the concern with, with that type of product is there's not a defined kind of secondary market or buying pool for that type of space. So right now, I'm not seeing a lot of condos.
Yeah, and I'd also say that when you talk to a apartment or condominium developer, developing apartments and having a continuous income stream is much more appealing than developing a condominium, having to sell it, and then remaining on the hook for problems that may occur. So the development model for condominiums is very challenging when you could build apartments.
Good afternoon, Chuck Radel. Question with the old M&I building sitting as it is, when we talk about the 100 East being changed over, what happens with that building? Because it's been out there, it's been discussed a lot, nothing's happening, and it sits. How long does it go, or do they tear it down? Is there any thought on what happens with 770?
So the building is owned by Ergens, and the building has been on and off the market for sale for a number of years. And, early on, I think there was momentum to try to convert the building into a hotel, but, those negotiations have stalled. Most recently, I think, there's been kind of a resurgence to try to reposition the building as a, renovated Class A building and attract another anchor, office tenant to come in and backfill that space.
Hi, thank you so much for your talk today. I'm Elizabeth Draper. My question is about you. Every once in a while, you would hear stories about companies that might find a building that they would buy for $1 from the city or things like that. Are those days past when someone might be able to find kind of a hidden gem, an older building that might be in disrepair but maybe has good bones? And do you ever do any scouting for those kinds of places, maybe in other parts of the city?
It does come across every once in a while, but I think it's fairly rare, and I think you have to have a devotion from the city to, or whatever municipality you're talking about, to get it redeveloped and bring that out and make clear that that's what is going to have to be put into it. There are properties that have very little value because demolition has to occur and redevelopment needs to occur. And sometimes that's addressed through tax incremental financing or other economic development vehicles. But I'm not sure they'd sell it to you for $1, but they would provide the incentives for you to get it, and you can derive value from it.
Yeah, there's a lot of property throughout Milwaukee that has contamination and needs a lot of remediation.
Hey, thanks for being here, Josh Rolling. We talked a little bit about the office market being, a little bit challenged now and industrial being still strong, but I guess Tracy is for the CARW side and the advocacy side, I guess if you had a magic wand and you could change one policy item or, make one change that would, you think would benefit the commercial real estate market, what would that be?
Eliminate the state income tax.
And on that note, I think we're all done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stay right there. Okay, all right. Thank you, Tracy, Jim, and Matt, for speaking with us today. And consistent with our current effort to raise funds for polio eradication, we will make a donation in your names to the Rotary Foundation to purchase 50 doses of the vaccine, bringing us closer to our goal of a polio-free world. So thanks again for your presentation today. And a few announcements before we close today's program. The parking gate will remain open until 1:30, so you do not need a parking validation ticket if you're leaving before then. Be sure to register for the first ever Pickleball Palooza at the River Club of Mequon on Thursday, September 18th. Details can be found on your flyer or online. The board will meet in room 413 following our adjournment. And join us next week as we hear from Michael Antonelli, market strategist at Baird, as he discusses where the cryptocurrency industry stands today. Should be relevant and fascinating. And he's a great speaker. We heard him just a few months ago. As we conclude today, I was reminded that we have a lot to build on in this community. So thanks again to our panel. Let's go out and do some good in the world. This meeting's adjourned.